There's another one you don't want to hear. Frankly, if it's alive.
1, 2, 3, set, go.
Hello and welcome to a very special bonus episode of the Power Chord Hour podcast. As always, I'm your host, Anthony Merchant, here with you with another episode. And you may go, Anthony, my good sir, what makes this a special bonus episode? Well, I'll tell you what. This one is a special one because I am going to do an audio review / just kind of rundown and talk about something very near and dear to my heart, and that is the replacements. I mean, if you have listened to the 40-plus podcasts that are on here, or if you've been listening to the radio show the last few years, it's no secret, my favorite band of all time. I mean, really, last week's episode was partly about that, talking about the Pleased to Meet Me box set, which, if you listen to that, I was bitching quite a bit because I did not get it yet. I did not get it in the mail, and then magically a few days later, and I would like to think, obviously, someone at Rhino heard the podcast and they're like, "Oh, we gotta make sure Anthony gets his stuff faster." I like to imagine that's what happened, and I got that bad boy in the mail, and I've listened to it a couple times, and got to enjoy it for a few days, and thought I would come on here and get a little rundown, talk about it, review it, because there's a whole lot in here. And if you're I assume you're probably a Replacements fan if you're listening to this, but I guess the other side too is maybe you're a casual fan, and I'll kind of walk you through what's in here if it's worth grabbing and whatnot. But I did want to make this a bonus episode because I can go on and on about the Replacements. They get, really, if you're sitting at home playing Power Chord Hour bingo, almost every episode I'm either going to bring up the Replacements or New Jersey pop punk. And then there's probably other ones too that I can't think of off the top of my head. But I'd say those two things are in every single episode that there is. That's just how it is. But I didn't want to do this in a full episode because I'm that might just be boring to review that. If you're not a fan of the Replacements, do you really want to hear me kind of break down this this box set? Nah, I'll hold off. And then I'm we'll do a little bonus one. I thought it would be fun. It'll be a little bonus one here, and just kind of getting into it. I will say off the top, I love all Replacements records. I really do. I know some people don't like All Shook Down or Don't Tell a Soul. A lot of people don't like either of them, but I'm not one of those people. I love both those records very much. I thought Dead Man's Pop was very cool last year, but I also didn't have a problem with the original though. Here's the thing with Don't Tell a Soul. What a big thing that people don't like about it is that it sounds like 1989. It's just how it was. It was how it was mastered. It was how it was mixed. It sounds, there's a lot of reverb on it, and I don't mind that. There's certain albums, and it's funny because I don't like every album to be. I don't want to call Don't Tell a Soul dated, but I guess in a way I do. Not in a bad way at all, but because it does sound of its time. But I like that about it. When I want to listen to a record that sounds like 1989, a late late 80s, rock record, that's a go-to. And we're in fall right now. That's probably that might be the most fall Replacements record there is, in my opinion. I think that one, most of their stuff does remind me of fall, but I think Don't Tell a Soul has some of the most fall-like songs on there. I think even just Don't Tell not Don't Tell a Soul, but Talent Show, opening up with Talent Show even, just the kind of, it kind of kicks in, but it's a little more mid-tempo, it's a little more relaxed and stuff, and it just, I don't know, something about it reminds me of the fall quite a bit. I love that record. But I didn't mind it before. I didn't have a problem with it sounding like it was recorded in 1989. I had no issue with that. I think those songs are still good. Because here's the other thing about that. People also bitch about the production and the sound on Tim, because obviously Tim doesn't sound amazing. The snare drum sound kind of sounds weird. If you don't know Tommy Ramone, who produced it, he was going deaf when he was producing it and recording them, and they did not know that at the time. So he was. It ended up being kind of disastrous in that sense. And you know what? Yeah, to be honest, it's not the best sounding record of all time. But at the same time, it really doesn't take away from the fact that, like Bastards of Young is one of the greatest songs I've ever heard in my entire life, or Left of the Dial, or Here Comes a Regular, or Hold My Life. Like, it doesn't, it may not add to it, but it doesn't take away from it. And that's the same way I look at with Don't Tell a Soul. I mean, the Replacements are a great example of that, because throughout their career, they have different sounds and different eras and stuff. And, also different like recording budgets. There's, like the subject at hand, Pleased to Meet Me, that has a pretty clean sound. I think that's their best produced record. That's their best sounding record. And I think most people would agree to that. Like, really, I think one of my favorite snare drum tones of all time is Chris Mars' snare on Pleased to Meet Me. I mean, it sounds so good. The drum sounds so crisp. The bass sounds really good. And actually, I think it's even kind of beefed up on the box set here. And I really do like the mix. I mean, I guess that also kind of goes with the remaster as well, because it was remastered for this box set. But yeah, what I'm saying though is, I mean, I love a good slick sounding record like Pleased to Meet Me, but at the same time, the Replacements are one of those bands that's a great example of, it doesn't matter what's going on with production, those songs are just fucking good. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, really, here's another one, You're Getting Married. I mean, that was a Paul just doing that at home. I mean, he was recording on whatever the hell he had in like 1982, so probably not the greatest equipment, and he's just doing this recording of himself. And yeah, it's rough. There's times where it's hard to, I mean, like the guitar is like distorting, not like he has distortion on it. Like, it's starting to peak. Like, it's so loud that it starts distorting on your speakers when you listen to it, and his voice, there's a lot of parts where you can't really tell what he's singing, entirely. And I mean, that's far from the only song that's like that. He's kind of famous for that, but like that song, I think that's one of the greatest Replacement songs. Like, that song is so, and that's the other thing, it's haunting, which also kind of complements, the production of it, or lack thereof, and, is why it kind of has that haunting vibe to it. But I think that's one of their best songs, and it's like there's zero production in that. I mean, absolutely zero. If Only You Were Lonely was another one, not as lo-fi, I'd say, as You're Getting Married, but I mean, not a lot of production in there, pretty simple, pretty stripped back. But, a good song is a good song. I mean, Paul Westerberg, and I think he knows that, because, I mean, if you look at like his solo work too, I mean, everything from basically this century, like anything since like 96 has all been pretty lo-fi, I mean, there's been producers and stuff, but he likes to do the lo-fi stuff. He likes to kind of have it rough around the edges. He likes to, record stuff in his basement and stuff. And those songs are still good. I mean, look at the I Don't Cares, the record he did with Juliana Hatfield. I mean, amazing. One of my favorite records of 2016. And I mean, I believe they did record that in his basement. And I mean, it's very rough around the edges at times. I mean, it's another one of those where it's like the production of it is kind of the lack of production, but it's the same thing. It's like, it doesn't matter. Those songs are just so good that it really doesn't matter how it was recorded or how it sounds. Like, the songs just stand on their own, And don't get me wrong, like, once again, like, production, I do like something to obviously sound good, but, that the Replacements are a testament to a band that doesn't need, production to make a great record. But, on Pleased to Meet Me, it does sound great. Obviously, they did that in Ardent, the famous studio Jody Stevens works at from Big Star, and Big Star recorded a couple of their records there, or actually really all their records there. And, just legendary studio. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg of who's recorded there. I mean, just, it's a who's who. I mean, it's one of the most legendary places. I did actually get to touch the mixing console that they worked on in, I think it's Studio B at Ardent that they did Pleased to Meet Me at. But they had up a display at, I can't remember what museum it was. It was in Memphis. I can't for the life of me right now remember. I went to a few there. I mean, they're all really cool, but one of them had the console there that they used to record on Pleased to Meet Me, and I obviously put my hand over the the velvet rope, and I touched that motherfucker, because you have to. I mean, you just have to, And I mean, if I'm not, I have to look at the picture. If I find it, maybe I'll throw it up on our Instagram page to kind of go along with this, give you a little more reference, but. It had underneath like all the bands that had recorded on it. And I mean, I think Big Star may have been on there as well. I think REM. I mean, it was a big old list. But yeah, I mean, tons and tons of bands have recorded there. Legendary studio. And I mean, the record just sounds great, really. I mean, kind of the flip side of me going, they don't need production. This album just sounds so good. And I mean, them as a trio too. It's always funny to me because Pleased to Meet Me 100% is my favorite Replacements record. But with that said, like Slim Dunlap is, I mean, I love him as a guitar player. He's an amazing guitarist. I love what he did in the Replacements. And Bob Stinson is like in my top 3 all-time favorite guitarists. But with that said, my favorite Replacements record features neither of them. It's them as a power trio. Like, it is honestly amazing. Like, really, what Paul, Chris, and Tommy did, I mean, it's insane, really. And when you think about it, too, kind of going back to, like, with All Shook Down and Don't Tell a Soul, I mean, I love those records, but look, there are a lot of people. I don't want to say a lot of people because that makes it sound like nobody likes the last 2 records, and that's not true. There's a good chunk of fans who don't, and I would definitely say like more than maybe 30%. I don't know that I'd say split right down the half. I don't know, because I feel like there's people, I've heard people who have also said they've come around to them, or like they like one of them but not the other. So it's like, I won't say it's split in half, but I would say a good 30 maybe to 40% don't care for them, or maybe if they don't hate them, because some people just fucking hate them, like will not listen to them. I think other people are just like, they're not their favorites. They don't really go out of their way to listen to them, but they maybe don't hate them the same way. And I will also say this. I mean, I was born in 1992. I was born a year after the Replacements broke up. So like the way that I got into the Replacements, Pleased to Meet Me was my first record from them, which is also probably part of why it's my favorite album. I do acknowledge that. But like, I got in such a weird way, kind of as you do when you go back and discover a band. Like, I didn't go in chronological order. So my thing is, if I was there from the very beginning and like I became a fan off Sorry Ma and Stink and all that, I can kind of see where once Don't Tell a Soul comes around and you get it and it's like, this is different. And like, I like a lot of things that sound like in the vein of Don't Tell a Soul. But, if you just kind of straight up like punk music or what, kind of like something more of that, like more with an edge or a little, the faster side of the Replacements, I can kind of see where it probably would come to you it would hit you. You know what I mean? It would hit you and be too shocking at the time, and it would take time to digest. Like maybe years later you could look back and appreciate it. But I can kind of see where, if at the time I was there, because I had already known it. Like I had heard, I heard the hits off of it, like I'll Be You and Aching to Be. And I mean, I kind of knew that it was like kind of a softer side of them before I heard the entire thing. But like, I loved it. Like Talent Show, like the first time I heard it, I loved Talent Show. But at the same time, I also see the flip side of that, where someone who, like they like lost it the first time, like their life was changed the first time they heard Taking a Ride, like, Talent Show is pretty different. And I mean, even from the record previous with Pleased to Meet Me, I mean, IOU, what an album opener. I mean, goddamn, is that an album opener. And that one is just so in your face, just a loud rock song that, Talent Show does kind of come out with more of a whimper in that sense. And I love that song, but I mean, if we're just comparing them in that sense, and even most of their album openers, I mean, also look at Kids Don't Follow, look at Taking a Ride. Even Hold My Life, they didn't do it so much with I Will Dare. I mean, I don't feel like, that's not like a super, super fast song, but I mean, it's just such a solid song, like one of their greatest, that like that was such a great way to open Let It Be, but also it was still different than I think how Talent Show came out. The other thing, though, it's interesting with that, if you've ever heard it, and if you haven't, you definitely have to go check it out. I would definitely go check out the Dead Man's Pop box set with all those Don't Tell a Soul songs, all the demos and rarities, and a bunch of stuff that was never released before last year. But the demos on there, a lot of those songs had more of a garage rock, just a straight up rock band sound. And the demo of Talent Show is like, it could have probably fit on like Pleased to Meet Me, really, without all the production on it, all the slick stuff and all the little added shit. Like that song probably could have fit on Pleased to Meet Me, to be honest. And another one of those too, like if you don't like, this is the other thing, like the production of those, if you don't like that on that or All Shook Down, you're like, oh, it's not as, they took out, like it just doesn't, it's not as loud as like all the other ones, and it doesn't sound like just a straight up rock record. A really good bootleg to go check out is actually their very final show at Grant Park in Chicago on July 4th, 1991, their very last show. I mean, obviously until they reunited. But that one really kind of gives you that, because throughout the set list, I will say the set list is very heavy on the last two records, but those songs mesh well with the rest of the catalog. Like everything else they play throughout that set, everything works. You know, like it doesn't, you really do hear it where it's stripped back and you go, that's just what that song sounded like when Paul Westerberg wrote it. You know, like when the rest of them started jamming on it and playing it, that's what it sounded like before it got, you know, like overly produced or too sleek or whatever, you know? So if you've never heard that, I mean, if you're a Replacements fan, I take it you probably have, but I always say that for people. Like if your problem with the last two records is the production of it and the sound of it, I would say go listen to that bootleg and really probably anything else from that, like All Shook Down tour, and you know, really hear that those songs, you know, like really had just a straight up rock vibe to them, you know, before all that stuff was put on it. And actually another one with that Dead Man's Pop box set, really, I was kind of forgetting about it, but the live at the University of Wisconsin on there, that's a good one, because that's they play quite a few songs from Don't Tell a Soul on that one, and you can hear that on there. Like those songs fit in with everything else they're playing, you know. And that concert too is just fucking great, I gotta say. I mean, the covers on there are amazing. I mean, just the set list that they chose to do was great. And I mean, like Color Me Impressed, the version on there, probably the best live version I've ever heard. It's amazing. I love just hearing Paul singing on it. He's just on fire that night. And it's also nice too, because it's a nice it's a nice look at the Slim era too, with Slim playing lead on there and hearing his kind of take on, you know, Bob Stinson stuff, because Bob Stinson and Slim were so different, you know. I mean, like they were such different guitar players who ended up playing in the same band. But it's funny, like when you think about it, like their style and stuff, both are amazing. Like both are amazing. I love them both. I mean, and like I said, Bob specifically, Bob Stinson in my top three, all-time favorite guitar players. Like, absolutely. I mean, he played like no one else. He was just such an unconventional guitar player. And that is something really cool, too, on the Pleased to Meet Me box set. You know, getting back to that, is this one does have 7 songs. If you didn't know, Bob actually did do a few sessions with them back in Minneapolis before they went and recorded down in Memphis. And the 7 of them are on here. I don't know. I guess those are probably all that they recorded. I mean, I don't think they held out anything. This box set has quite a bit of stuff. I would be very surprised if they're holding anything from us. But I mean, he did 7 songs with them. So I mean, on this box set, he did Valentine, Birthday Gal, Photo, which I love that song. That wasn't on the record, but if you've never heard that one of the best Pleased to Meet Me B-sides. He played guitar on Nevermind, which is funny because a lot of people say Nevermind is kind of about him. So that's kind of funny to think about. But, I mean, not to say it's not about him. It's just funny to think that he played on it. Also, IOU, Red Red Wine, and Time Is Killing Us. That's another one that was, and that was actually unreleased up until now. And that's the other cool thing. I mean, there's, like, because they did do the reissue of Pleased to Meet Me back in 2008, and that was actually my very first one. I got that back in 2008 once it came out, and that was my first Replacements album. I remember buying it at Best Buy, and it would have been September or October of 2008. So, I mean, like this time, however many, 12 years ago? Yeah, 12 years ago that would have been. That I got my first Replacements record, and it's funny, I got Pleased to Meet Me, and I also got Social Distortion, self-titled, same night. And I mean, that's another one that's I love Social Distortion. That's my favorite record of theirs. Just another really big one for me. You know what? Shout out to Best Buy in Erie. I bought throughout the years, and it's funny because I mean, you can't even buy a fucking CD at Best Buy now. Like, you can't even go buy music there. Some of them might have vinyl. I probably wouldn't be surprised if they did. But, you can't even go buy a CD there anymore. But throughout the years, it's funny because I bought a lot of albums there that became, like, big. Same with the other one off the top of my head is Nevermind the Bollocks. Here's the Sex Pistols. I remember buying that there. I mean, that's another really big one for me. You know, it's funny. I have record stores throughout the years that I've been to and bought albums from, but really most of my big albums I can't say came from like some cool weird indie record store. Like, I bought the Blue album from Kmart. You know, I bought my first Blink-182 album at Kmart as well. Bought a lot of things at like FYE and shit. Like I don't have tons of like, yeah, I bought it at, that little records shop, downtown. Like I don't know. They're all at like corporate chains, but shout out to Best Buy in Erie for for doing it right by me with that Pleased to Meet Me and Social Distortion that fateful night. But anyways, that 2008 reissue they did on CD, that had quite a few bonus tracks on it that were never released before that. But this one has even more. This has stuff you've never heard anywhere. And what everyone is saying, and I mean, I 100% agree with, like the highlight, I would say, of the entire thing, the one hearing Bob play on those, because that is really cool. But I think the best is there are quite a few Tommy Stinson songs on here that no one's ever heard. Like before now, the only replacement song that I've ever been aware of, and I think just about anyone else has ever been aware of, that Tommy sang lead on was Satellite. That's the only one that's ever really been known of. And there's 4 of them on here. There's 4 new ones. And it's insane to hear him sing. His voice was good from the get-go, though, because I listened to them, and when you put them on, like if you listen to them without listening to the rest of the box set, you would just think that those were like bash and pop B-sides. Like, and I mean that in a good way, because that ended up being 5 or 6 years later, so this is still Tommy. I mean, 1987, he would have been, oh man, I mean, I think he might have been 16, maybe 17. Maybe. I mean, he was definitely under 18. And that's the other thing. Like, I know that's such a big thing, but it's like, I always forget that he was 11 years old when they started. Like, because you forget that too, because he's not that old now. I mean, he's like early 50s. And when you start thinking about how long he's really been playing, like, that's when you start thinking of his age going, Jesus, like that doesn't add up. Like when you really start thinking about it, because like, yeah, he's 50, he's early 50s, but it's like, yeah, but he's also been doing it since, they put out their first album in 1980, and then he was doing Dog Breath since I think 78 they started. And so he's been doing it forever. But yeah, those songs are probably the highlight. I mean, not only are they great songs, but I mean, to hear Tommy sing on those, kind of really foreshadowing what we would later get with Bash and Pop. I mean, it's been cool to get all these releases the last few years to kind of, the bits and pieces. Same with the reissues for Friday Night is Killing Me, and hearing those home demos and stuff, and hearing more of like, Tommy progressing through the years, going from, being the bass player to really, becoming a front man, and I mean, a really damn good one. But yeah, I mean, there's 4 Tommy songs on here, even if it's cheap. Hey Shadow, Trouble on the Way, and Awake Tonight. And I mean, those are not only some of the strongest songs on the entire box set, on all 3 discs, but it's amazing to hear that. And yeah, the Bob thing is really cool too, because it's different. On Pleased to Meet Me, the studio version, Paul's playing all the guitar on there. And so, you're kind of only getting Paul's style, which I love. I mean, he sounds great on that record. But this, you get to hear the leads where Bob plays them. This is what it sounds like with Bob playing them. I like it. It makes me, another one it makes me think of is with Blink-182 when Scott Rayner was kicked out, in between Dude Ranch and Enema of the State. Like, there's a few demos out there. Like, there's Mutt, and then I can't remember. I think there might be 1 or 2 others, but it's like, that's another one that I would love to hear more of those, because it really does. It's like, whenever you wonder, like, what would Pleased to Meet Me sound like with Bob, or what would, Enema of the State sound like with Scott Rayner? And it's like a look into that, And Bob sounds great on the songs. It sounds like classic Bob Stinson. Like, you hear him and you're definitely like, oh yeah, that's Bob playing on him. And you can hear where it changes too, in the studio, where by the time Paul takes over. But I like what Paul does. The one thing I will say that's kind of cool too, though, speaking of like Paul's guitar playing, to give him some credit as well, because he's a solid rhythm guitarist. But you kind of start seeing how he plays, and really how unconventional he plays. Like, Bob's an unconventional player, and so is Paul. And they're different. Like, Bob is an unconventional lead player, and Paul's like an unconventional rhythm player. Because when you listen, like, what I love about what Paul does is he'll play a straight rhythm, but he'll start putting embellishes in there, and he'll kind of do little, like, he'll just add little fills and do these little things in there. So it's not just straight up, just playing, power chords or whatever. Like, you start to realize how much of that is part of the replacement sound. Like, you go like, why does no one else sound like the Replacements? Why is no one? Because really, it's like that's a band too where you try to cover them, and it's like, I mean, there are good replacements covers, don't get me wrong, but you never truly sound just like them. Like, there's no way to sound just like them. And I think part of it is also in his guitar playing and also his weird-ass guitar tunings. But, hearing the demos are really cool, because on some of those, he's not playing on the finished product, on the studio version, he's playing, even though they're a trio, like, there's definitely a second guitar on there at times, and maybe even third. So it's like he was in there, layering things. It's all him, but, obviously layered in the studio. But on some of those demos, it's just them as a trio with him just playing one guitar. And you kind of start to hear, kind of breaking down at its simplest, what he's playing on those songs. But I would love to hear that, because when you listen to, like, I think one of the other genius things about the Bob Stinson era of the Replacements is that Paul and Bob, like, the way that they played, once again with that, like, being so unconventional, they, like, their guitars would also just sync up so well, like, what they were playing, that there's times where I don't think you can really split apart who's playing what. Like, it makes this one awesome fucking sound, just this beautiful sound of loud rock guitar, but, it's both of them playing, but it's like, I would love to be able to hear that. Basically, I just want to hear the master tracks of just those, because it's really, like, what both of them are playing is not what you would expect the average person to be playing. Like, the average band, like, if you're going, like, just color by numbers, like, the way they play their songs is just so different, and it's part of what made them so good, But it's interesting. Like, that's one of the cool things about this box set, I think, even more than Dead Man's Pop, is I think this one, you can really pull apart things from them. Like, if this is your thing, like, if you're into getting kind of, seeing how an album was made, how it progressed and matured. I mean, because really, like, at the beginning of this, you're hearing it as the original lineup, like the four of them, like Bob, Paul, Tommy, and Chris. Like, you hear them 7 songs, and then you start hear them demoing as a trio, and then there's, like, rough mixes, and then you hear the unreleased stuff that didn't make it, songs that were going to be on there and then didn't make it on. And, it's really cool. You can really start breaking it apart. And, also, too, the remaster sounds great. I mean, the new album, or not the new album, but, the new remaster of it, they didn't fuck with anything too much. Like, I mean, it doesn't sound like a completely different album, but, like, the bass sound, I think the bass, I'd say, sounds a lot better. It's kind of more beefed up. That's definitely a big one. Drums still sound amazing. But, Justin Perkins did that. And, I mean, he did an amazing job mastering it. And that dude, he plays, or he did play bass in Bash and Pop. He did. He no longer does. We played with them for a while. I think he played on Anything Could Happen. Pretty sure he played bass on that. And I mean, he played live with them and stuff too for a while. But he was also in a great band called the Obsoletes that I've never played on here, but I play on the radio show. And a really rad band you should go check out. I think he also played in Screeching Weasel for a while, or at least with Ben Weasel maybe, like, I don't know, like 10, 12 years ago or something. But, I mean, and a bunch of others, too. He's done a bunch of cool shit, basically. And, did a really great job on this. I know he works on a lot of the Replacements releases and always does a great job with them, with the remasters. And just, really, like, 'cause that's the other thing. As much as I said, like, Rhino dropped the ball on getting this stuff out. But as far as the box set goes, they did a great job on it. Like, I do give Rhino credit, because I never, like, they have been putting out a lot of replacement stuff, like, the last few years. Like, you get something almost every year, like, whether it's Dead Man's Pop, whether it's this, whether it was the For Sale Live at Maxwell's a few years ago, like, or the Twin Tone box set for the vinyl, or the Sire Years box set. Like, there's kind of been something every year since they reunited. But at the same time, Rhino also did the best of that they put out in, like, 2007, and they also did all those CD reissues back in, like, 2008, and all those were really good. Those all had tons of great unreleased songs and stuff on there. Like, sometimes they'll put those out and they're just not worth it. Like, unless you're, like, a hardcore, like, fan, like, they'll put, like, really, really rough home demos and stuff that you'll only maybe listen to once, maybe. But on those, they put a bunch of like stuff that was never released before and like really good things. I mean, some being demos, some being home recordings, but also just like unreleased songs. So, I mean, Rhino does a good job with them and also does really good packaging, and Bob Mayer, who wrote Trouble Boys, he works on a lot of these, he does a lot. Same with Justin Perkins, like I said, mastering them. And, they just have a great team really working on this stuff. So, I mean, it always comes out really good. Like, I always feel like it's fair, like, fair priced. I feel like I'm getting something good. I don't feel like it's a thing where they're like taking the bloated corpse of a band that I love and just selling shit to try to make a buck. Like, I don't feel like that. Like, there truly is a quality behind these box sets. So it's like I really do appreciate that from them. And I mean, the stuff, I did end up getting the biggest pre-order package from them. So I mean, I got the box set, and altogether it has 3 CDs and a record. And it's kind of weird. It's all right, but the record does have I guess this would be one of my. I've said all the good stuff I like about it. I mean, a few little complaints, like the record I wish had, because it has like rough mixes on it. So it's like you get the album, but you get like rough mixes. Like I much rather would have had the remastered just version that was on the CD. Like they should have put that on there. But yeah, you get 1 record, 3 CDs. But on top of that, I also got a shirt, a nice Pleased to Meet Me shirt, a cassette with a really long interview. It's like a 40-minute interview with Paul Westerberg, a cool little patch, a tote bag, a Pleased to Meet Me sticker, and a placemat, a replica of those original Pleased to Meet Me placemats that they did back in the day. I thought that was pretty cool. The only thing I didn't get were the hand buzzers that they're only putting out, like select record stores have them if you go get them there. But that's the only thing I didn't get, which hopefully I can find one of these days. But yeah, Rhino always does a really good job on like the pre-order goodies for these replacement things. Like the paper dolls a few years ago were really cool. Like just always doing really neat stuff. So I mean, as far as that goes, like this is a nice box set. I mean, kind of getting into my like review of it overall. I mean, I would give it, if I was rating it out of like a 10, I would say 8 out of 10. If this is an album that you like, if you're a Replacements fan, I mean, I would say it's a no-brainer. You got to grab this. It's really, I mean, there's just so much on here that it's well worth it. It's well worth your time. It's not something where it's like, oh, I already have this album. There's a lot of shit on here. And even if you have that 2008 CD with those bonus tracks, there's still a bunch on here. You do get those songs like I do. I don't know. I don't know if there's anything else from this, from those sessions. Like I said, I think we got just about everything. But like on the first disc that has the remaster on it, it's great. But the bonus tracks are on that one just basically that 2008 remaster and reissue. So, I mean, you basically just get the same track list on there. I think they literally swapped, like, the last 2 songs, like the track listing. They, like, put the songs in a separate order, and that's about it. But it's really the other 2 discs. I mean, the remaster's nice. I mean, it's nice to have, remaster Pleased to Meet Me. But that album has sounded good since the beginning. So it's like, that's just kind of a nice added bonus that it's remastered. It's really not the selling point. I mean, I don't think anyone's buying, it's like $60, $70. So I don't think anyone's buying this for $70 for a remastered version of a record that already sounded fucking great. But it did. I mean, it does sound good. It's a nice cherry on top. But I mean, the real thing here, I would say, are those disc 2 and 3, and the vinyl's nice too. But like I said, I would have, that's where I think the remaster should be nice, where it's like it would sound good on that record. It'd be a nice high quality version. Though I don't remember what year they put it out. I have an older as in like maybe 10 or 11 years old, not an original press, but of Pleased to Meet Me just by itself, not from the box set for 5 years ago, but like, I don't know, maybe like 2010, 2011, maybe they put it out. And it's probably one of the best sounding records I own. It just sounds amazing. They did a great job on that one too. But this one I think would have sounded cool if you got that remaster on the vinyl. And like I said, first disc is cool if you don't have that 2008 one. If you do, it's going to be the same thing, but with those bonus with the album remastered. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, you really want disc 2 and 3. I mean, altogether, that's probably, I think, maybe like 40 songs. I mean, quite a few songs we're talking about here. That has, I mean, you get 4 Tommy Stinson sang songs, that sang songs. That just sounds very odd. Chris Mars, obviously, on All He Wants to Do Is Fish. Man, that one's been out for a while, but if you've never heard that one, that's on there. And, that's the other cool thing, too, is hearing him do backing vocals. You hear it anyways on the record, but on a lot of those demos, he's doing things that you don't hear on the studio version. I'm trying to think of which song it is. There's one where he sings part of the chorus. Like, he's almost doing a back and forth with Paul, and it sounds really cool. There's really not a replacement song that they've ever really done that on. So, that's the thing. Like, there's so many songs on this that, really just show you, the ins and outs of this record, that I think it's just so, those two discs are really, for any Replacements fan, I mean, that's the sweet spot, really, right there. And hearing Bob Stinson, I mean, those are the last recordings with Bob with the band. I mean, that, if you're a fan, is huge. I mean, to hear those is absolutely huge. We've heard a few of those over the years, but not all 7 of them. I mean, that's really cool to hear them. The demos are neat. It's cool to hear, because one thing Paul does, and I mean, other artists do this, but Paul is notorious for this. He improvises a lot of his lyrics in studio. I mean, it's well known. Like, he'll have a line. I think I remember reading this in Trouble Boys. I believe it was Hold My Life. He had the chorus, Hold My Life Until I'm Ready to Use It, but he didn't really have any verses, so he just kind of ad-libbed. If I'm not mistaken, he just kind of improvised those lyrics, in studio. He's been known to do that. He very much, there's songs where he'll tell you, because it's hilarious. Because, I mean, he's my favorite, songwriter, but there's songs where I'd probably go, that line's so deep, and he'd tell you, it's he just pulled that out of his ass. While he was, he had this chorus, and he knew the chorus was good, and the melody was good. So he's just but as far as words go, it's not every line is really deep. It's some of that stuff is just kind of, almost pulled out of thin air. And it's neat to hear on here. There's a couple of songs that have totally, I think Red Red Wine is one of them, where the demo, he's singing totally different lyrics. So, and some of them make sense. Some of them do, once again, sound like Paul Westerberg's just kind of ad-libbing while he's, while he is in studio. And also, I mean, there's a big old nice for the liner notes. It has a big old master list to tell you what songs, who played on what, who worked on what, where it was produced. And there's tons of quotes from Paul and everyone who worked on the album in there, from old interviews and stuff that give you more an insight of the songs. And once again, this is really a good. It's kind of like with, again, just going back to Dead Man's Pop, and I would actually say I may like this box set even more than I like Dead Man's Pop. But, actually, what I would say of that, too, is I think with Dead Man's Pop, the main thing, hearing the new mix of those songs with a different track list, and really going back and kind of doing something, creative with the original Don't Tell a Soul, that, to me, was one of the real highlights of Dead Man's Pop, where I would say Pleased to Meet Me box set, it's more of the bonus tracks, and there were some great bonus tracks, don't get me wrong, on Dead Man's Pop, but I think the initial idea of just the studio album, they really did that cool with Dead Man's Pop, going back, switching up track list, I mean, sounding, some of those songs sound so different, remastered, remixed, and just reworked like that. We're on this one, Pleased to Meet Me, I'm telling you now, you go check it out. You're gonna want to hear all the bonus stuff. And some really good unreleased songs on there. Like I said, those are some a couple really good ones I've never heard before. A few Run for the Country's on there, and it's cleaned up. It's the cleanest version of it I've ever heard. So it's really cool to get ones like that. It's just all together. It's this great collection of that album. And with those liner notes and everything, you just get such an insight of what was going on, everything about it. I mean, it's kind of like a time capsule for the era of that band and that record, And then that cassette as well with the interview. It was originally on because I've seen it for years on eBay throughout the years, but that interview was originally put out on a promo 7-inch, back in the 80s, originally when Pleased to Meet Me came out. But it's cool to have it on the cassette. That's kind of neat. And, with that, I mean, that's 40 minutes of audio of him interviewing Paul Westerberg. So, I mean, yeah, just so much stuff. It's just such a great, just tearing apart what is my favorite Replacements record and really showing you the ins and outs of it and, what was going on at the time. Because it was an interesting time. People wondered what was going to go on when Bob was out of the band. I think the three of them were wondering what was going to happen to the Replacements once Bob was out. Like they kind of knew that they couldn't go on with him, but then at the same time, it's like he was such a big part of their sound. You go back and listen to that stuff. Without Bob, they would sound like a totally different band, and they did, and I liked what came out of it, but 100% they sounded different. There's no denying that. They definitely sounded different without him. But, just such a great box set altogether. I think it was really done well. I think they really put time and effort in this. And I would give it an 8 out of 10. I highly recommend it. If you've never heard the album, I would probably you got to go check out this album. It rules. If you've never heard it, you could probably just do with, going and hearing any version of it. It sounds great. It was greatly produced the first time around. Everything just sounds so good on it that it's like any version of it that you listen to is going to sound good. So, it's probably not of your interest if you're fairly new to the band. But if you're a Replacements fan, like, any kind, hardcore or even casual, I would say this is worth it. If you like this record, you're going to like everything on this. It was really enjoyable. And I'm just going to keep listening to it. I love it. I'm excited. We'll have to see what's next. Like I said, Rhino seems to put something out like every year. So I would assume, I don't know how the Twin Tone stuff would work. I assume they own that stuff because they did release that Twin Tone Years box set a few years ago, and they did do the reissues back in 2008 on the CDs. They did still do the Twin Tone era. So I don't know. Maybe they'll move on to that, but as far as Sire era goes, we still got Tim and All Shook Down. And I do hear people talk about Tim enough where, maybe they'll go back kind of like they did with Dead Man's Pop and kind of rework it and reimagine it and kind of do the same thing with Tim. Maybe not fuck with the track listing, but, go in there, beef stuff up, make the bass sound better, maybe try to fix the snare a little bit. That would be interesting to hear. I wouldn't be against it. I think those songs sound great, but, I wouldn't mind seeing what they did because I do trust them too. The people they have working on these, I think are legitimate fans and care. So, like I think they'll go in and do a good job. Like I know Justin, I know he's a Replacements fan because in the Obsoletes, they covered Photo. And that already, when they covered it, it's still a pretty obscure Replacement song, but even at that point, I don't even know where it was released because I'm pretty sure they did that cover before it was even put on the CD reissue in 2008 of Pleased to Meet Me. So I don't even know where they heard it. So I know he's a fan. So him working on this stuff, I think is awesome. I think that's great. I think the people care. So knowing that, I wouldn't mind hearing someone maybe taking a crack at Tim and kind of working it again. But at the same time, it's just such a great record anyways. It's like, I don't care. But I would be happy to hear outtakes and demos and stuff. Replacements are one of those bands. They left us with a lot of music. Some bands you have like one album or maybe a handful, maybe like a handful of full lengths and a couple EPs. Like the Replacements just have, outtakes, demos, alternative versions. On top of all the studio albums. And live bootlegs too. I'm always surprised at that too. For being a band of the 80s and that stuff not being as accessible, like it's insane how many well-produced or like well-sounding like soundboard rips or like just bootlegs, like even from the audience, that are out there and like all archived and stuff too online, like all easily found and accessible and sound great. And including you can hear the nights where they're off and the nights where they're on. It's all documented very well. But that is my review. I think you knew already. I love the Replacements. You knew it was going to be favorable. But even without that, they're my favorite band. But even taking that out, this is just a well put together box set. It's just really, if you wanted a box set that really just, like I said, the ins and outs of an album, like if that's what you're looking for, like I want to know everything about it, what it was like to record it, what it sounded like throughout, like this is really it. This is you seeing those songs become something, and just absolutely amazing. So highly recommend. I would definitely go buy this. Go check it out. Pleased to Meet Me box set is out now from Rhino Records puts that out. That sounds like an advertisement. It's not. I mean, this is actually, I guess, a big old free advertisement for the replacements in Rhino. I mean, I don't get shit out of this. I had to buy mine. But, it's just true. It's really damn good and well worth going and checking out. So that's going to be this little bonus episode. Not even little. This is 45 minutes. This is almost a full episode. But thanks for checking it out. And if you want to give us a follow online, we're at Power Chord Hour on Twitter, Instagram, on Facebook. We're on Spotify. We're all over the place on there. And obviously the radio show every Friday night from 10 Eastern to midnight on 107.9 WRFA. And I am still doing, too, if you want to rate and review the podcast, send me a screenshot. Go rate and review it on iTunes, and I'll send you a Power Chord Hour t-shirt. So, you can send that to powerchordhour@gmail.com. And also, shout out, I know I brought it up last time on the last podcast, but India went from number 3 to now our second most downloaded in country. That is amazing. So thank you, everyone listening over there. I mean, just absolutely amazing. They've blown every other country out of the water. Like that's it. I mean, they come for the U.S., become number 1. That would be cool. That's so awesome to see it getting around the world. So that is it. This is our little bonus episode. We'll have our October rundown here. This should probably be released probably Saturday night. This will come out. So look for the October rundown on Monday. Going to be recording that here in just a second. I'm going to finish this and then go record that. So I'm a busy man. I also have a interview for you here in a couple weeks that I gotta work on because we had some technical difficulties. We'll get that all fixed and it'll be out there. That is it. Thank you so much for checking out this bonus episode. And for the Power Chord Hour, I'm Anthony Merchant. Thanks for listening.